I call together a meeting of the Pennichuck Water Special Committee. Today is Wednesday, March 1st, 2017, at 7:01 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Alderman at Large Daniel T. Moriarty.
I am here.
Alderman Sean McGinnis, I am here. Alderman at Large Mark S. Cookson.
Present.
And Alderwoman Mary Ann Melisa Golia.
She is excused.
Also in attendance tonight is Alderman Donald Brunn.
And Alderman at Large David Dean is excused also.
He's excused.
They both called in advance. So I'm glad Alderman Cookson could be here to help us make a quorum, because I guess we're missing someone else, aren't we?
Nope, that's it. Just Dean and Melissa.
Dean and Mary
But I'm
Ann.
returning the
no,
favor for you.
Are you here full time?
I'm here full time. I am on your committee.
Awesome. Well, who was here?
I'm going to guess it may have been Alderwoman Sheehan.
Yeah, Lori was always on this
I think
committee.
it was Wilshire. So she must have.
Wasn't Lori Wilshire always on this committee? Yeah.
One,
I don't know
two,
if there was a
three,
switch at some point, but
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's
Yeah,
only
that
five.
was it.
It's a five-person committee.
So you must have. So you came in. Have we had a meeting
I
yet
don't
since
believe
you've been?
so. Not since,
Certainly since you've been elected, we have,
yes.
but not since you came on. So there must have been some shuffling around in the last few months, maybe January or something. Anyway, all right.
okay.
Glad we straightened that out.
Let's see here. I'm a little behind, and my kids say I look like I'm from Dumbledore. What? Oh yeah. Right? Which one? Is it Dumbledore? I don't know. Anyways, we have some guests from Pennichuck. Please join us as we usually do. Have a seat. As you get set up, let's see. I'll let the clerk go through the agenda. Sorry I cut you off.
No, that's all right. We don't have public comment tonight.
Records
It doesn't
there.
appear to be, unless we include Pennichuck, but we do have.
Communications.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a communication from Thomas J. Leonard, Chairman, Pennichuck Corporation Board of Directors, regarding a special meeting of the sole shareholder, March 24, 2017.
Is there a motion on the floor?
I would
Alderman Cookson.
I would move to accept and place on file.
So the motion by Alderman Cookson is to accept and place on file and recommend the election of Jim Murphy to the Board of Directors of the Pennichuck Corporation for a term to expire December 31st, 2017, and until his successor is elected and qualified.
Yes,
so
that was my motion.
that was the motion. And so prior to that discussion, we have three of our esteemed Pennichuck employees and Board of Directors. Please introduce yourself.
So my name is Thomas J. Leonard. I'm the chairman of the board of directors. Don Ware is our COO, and Larry Goodhue is our CEO. And I'm sure we're all very happy to be here. I think we haven't been here in probably 3 plus or minus months, so it has been a while. I don't know, would you like me to address that first item first, Mr.
So the
Chairman?
first one is there's a special meeting of the sole shareholder being called on a Friday morning. So I won't be able to make it because I have to commute down to Bedford. But we'll send the proxy as usual. This is in addition, I presume, to the usual meeting, and it's because you had somebody leave and you need to have them brought on. So with that.
Yes, so, and we've actually had some conversations about this particular vacancy over the last several months. This has been since last spring, and we went through our process. What I did in the letter is I tried to explain our process to just remind folks of what we have been doing. The short story is that we're very deliberate, thoughtful in the whole process. We have nominated John Murphy, who is very qualified and actually fits an immediate, one of the priorities that we had established as a need. So we've included in the letter the minutes of some of our most recent meeting. You may remember what we do is we we start out as a committee of the board, looking at what the needs of the board is, or what's the needs are, and identify the skills that we would like to have. This is a vacancy, so we actually lost something that we had identified as important. And that's kind of in the financial side of things and in the utility side of things. So we went through our process of identifying our needs. This time we looked at candidates as a result of an advertisement, and we also looked at candidates who we sought out. All went through the same process of submitting resumes, having an initial confidential interview, actually two confidential interviews in some cases. Anyway, the short story is the minutes that you have in front of you are the minutes of our most recent interview, which was a public interview, and we invite, we provide notice to the Board of Aldermen in case the Board of Aldermen has, any members of the Board of Aldermen has questions or whatever. We went through that process. We're very, very happy with our nominee, John Murphy. We've included his resume, and we haven't heard any adverse comments in any sense of the word. So, as I say, we're very, very happy, and we put it forward to this board, or to the, it's actually, the shareholder is the city of Nashua, as everybody knows. And what we've done in the past is, we've never had a vacancy, but we followed the same process that we do for an annual meeting. So what you have in your packet today is the proxy, the explanation of the process, the information that may be helpful, which includes the minutes and a resume. And what we would look to this committee to do would be to recommend filling out the proxy. Then it goes to the full board of aldermen, and they identify someone to sign that proxy, should everything go forward in a positive way. And then there's really no reason to have a meeting other than to open the meeting, accept the proxy, and confirm the vote. So that's why we had it at 8. We figured it's really kind of an administrative type thing rather than an important meeting, if you will. So that's the process we're following here today. Just to add a little bit to that, we do have our regular annual meeting in May. So interestingly, this particular vacancy was an individual who would be up for election again in May. So this person that is filling the vacancy will also come before you the next go around for the May annual meeting. But again, we're very happy with the way the process went. We had some good applicants. It was a difficult decision, actually. We had some very good applicants, and we're very happy with this particular individual, and think he'll be very important and an important part of the board.
After flipping through this, now I remember the fact that Mr. Murphy, works at Fidelity and either did or still does bond rating for utilities.
Yeah.
And did he come to Personnel Administrative Affairs?
No,
How did I meet him as?
Well,
maybe I haven't.
normally it doesn't happen that he would go to Personnel Affairs, because this isn't really anything to do with the city. This is the private board of directors for Pennichuck. The reason we come here, obviously we afford you folks an opportunity to be a part of the process as much as is in the bylaws and reasonable under the circumstances. But it is still the board of directors for Pennichuck as opposed to the city. He's not really an employee or any reason to be reviewed as part of the personnel. So they are separate.
No, I'm just trying to figure out why this all seems so familiar. Maybe it's just because I read through this.
Well, we had talked about it. Yeah. We've kind of given you updates probably the last 2 meetings.
Maybe that was it.
And quick updates, so no reason for you to remember all the detail, but maybe some of it it makes sense.
But it does make sense that you'd have somebody who does bond rating for utilities on the board of directors.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's very familiar with analyzing financial statements and things like that for utilities generally, so that's always a good thing to have.
So he'd know what would be viewed as a wart in order to have to advise you how to portray the company in the best light possible, or at least to set the finances in motion in advance, so that when it comes time to review, the numbers are actually the way they should be for maximum bond, I don't know, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And actually, he wasn't on bond rating, he was actually involved in actually issuing bonds for other utilities.
Okay,
Yes,
so there's only a couple that would do the bond rating, that'd be Moody's or whatever.
right, right. So he was actually in the bond trading side for Fidelity, as I understand it.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I suspect he'd be having a lot of pleasant conversations with you if you speak the same language. Anyway, sorry, I'm
Oh, that's okay. I mean, he was
monopolizing
underwriting.
things.
May I?
Please.
He was underwriting the bonds, right?
Yeah, so he,
It's
not
an
for
interesting-
us, yeah,
Not for us.
It's just
No.
interesting, yeah.
but he's kind of in the municipal bond and utility bond
Sure.
sector for Fidelity.
Yeah.
He's had different positions there.
And perhaps that would be a comment is that he would be precluded from doing such for our bonds. You know, so that's one thing that he had to check with Fidelity, is he could not have a conflict of interest in that, you know, being involved in the issuance of bonds, you know, for us. He could not be the underwriter for that as a board member, so.
Okay.
Mhm.
And does it say who's leaving? Who is leaving?
Jim McMahon
Okay.
resigned for personal and family-related
Right.
reasons last spring, and so this is a replacement for him.
Okay. Alderman Cookson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious, you had indicated in your prior comments that you had put an ad out for interest, but you'd also had a list of potentials that you were seeking. Where does Mr. Murphy fall in that list? Was he somebody that replied, or was he somebody that was sought after by your board of directors?
So, I'm not sure if he became aware of it from the public ad or not, but we also learned of him through the individual who resigned, because they had a connection in business. And then we asked Mr. Murphy to apply and go through the process. I did.
Thank you.
And we're very happy with that. He definitely fits an important part. Pennichuck is very financially technical and specialized. It might be a way to say it, but it's an unusual financial structure and has a lot of unusual financial things going on it's always good to have experts. And John will be one of those.
Well, if there's no further discussion, the motion on the table is to accept, place on file, and recommend the election of James Murphy to the Board of Directors. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Motion carries. So that will go to the full board whenever the next one is, and we'll vote on it and turn the crank. Proxy either gets signed or doesn't sign.
Right.
Let's see, what else do we have?
We have an additional communication, Mr. Chairman. From Larry D. Goodhue, CEO, Pennichuck Corporation, regarding request for approval of loans from the New Hampshire Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund Program, Pennichuck East Utility, Inc.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor? Alderman Cookson.
Motion to accept and place on file.
That's the motion by Alderman Cookson to accept and place on file the communication from Mr. Goodhue regarding a request for approval of loans from the New Hampshire Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund Program. I'm trying to find, where did I put that thing? I've seen so many of these that they all say the same thing at some point, right? So let's just let Mr. Goodhue explain to the audience who doesn't have a copy and hasn't read it, what's going on.
Sure, thank you. What's before you is, in the normal course of our process, is anytime we're obtaining financing for one of the regulated utilities, actually any part of the company, is we're obligated to go through a number of approval steps. First is to get our board to approve us pursuing that as a management team. Secondly is to come to the shareholder, and in our bylaws, the shareholder approves any financing that we do. And then we have to then petition the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission for financing that would be for any of our regulated utilities. So this is step 2 in that process. Once we have all those approvals, then we would go through and, of course, then complete the financing and obtain the monies. This is with the State Revolving Fund, the SRF program, as the Secretary read into the record. And so this is a bucket of money that is available to municipalities and/or utilities in the state for certain specified and eligible projects. And it's a financing that we look at whenever we have the opportunity for 2 simple reasons. Cost of issuance is far lower than other costs, and the cost of borrowing is far lower. These loans, the interest rate will not set until they go into repayment, but I think the maximum on these loans was 1.96%, which is, incredible. They are for a period of 20 years on all of these 3 particular loans, and there's 3 loans that we're looking at for our PEU subsidiary. One is a loan of $2.4 million, and that is to construct an interconnection pipeline underneath the Merrimack River from basically our core system in Merrimack over and interconnect with the system that we have over in Litchfield, New Hampshire. We already have a water system over there where we have a partial ownership in some wells over there, and an interconnection main that actually goes across the Taylor Falls Bridge and actually wheels water through Hudson up into Litchfield. And this will actually give us 2 things. Is number one, it will give us the extra capacity that we need on that side of the river, but it will also bring some economic efficiencies to both PEU and PWW in the construction of this main. So it's got a duplicate effect there, in that we're going to be able to now provide water directly across the river in a much more efficient manner. And there's a number of different approvals going along with this, getting permission to go underneath the river with the main, getting permission for a wholesale contract between PWW and PEU for the sale of water with this, as well as getting the approval of the financing. The second project is for a replacement of about a half a mile or a little bit less of water main on Brady Avenue in Derry, New Hampshire at the cost of $570,000. This is really being done in concert with some sewer work that is being done in the town of Derry at the same time, and replacing water main in that area at the same time that they're doing that work. And then thirdly is the cost of replacing about 1,200 linear feet of water main on Hillcrest Road in Litchfield that is needing replacement. So those 2 latter projects, the $570,000 for Brady Ave and the $245,000 for Hillcrest, are the replacement of existing mains, whereas the $2.4 million interconnection of the river is brand new main and includes actually, a booster, a pump station on the west side of the river, and going underneath the river through an easement and connecting to our system on the east side of the river. Coincidentally, the booster station, there's an existing building that we have that we're going to be able to reutilize and re-equip to actually accomplish that. So a very attractive project that's going to meet a number of different needs that we need to meet with respect to our customers.
Alderman Cookson.
Thank you. The first project, the $2.4 million project, and the interconnect between the 2 systems, did the PFOA issue, would you consider it a precursor as to requiring that need? Did that have any impact in the decision to interconnect the 2 systems?
No, actually, we've on that side of the river, between the wells and the existing interconnection, the wells that we have a part ownership on the other side of the river are being overstressed as it is. And so there was a problem that was kind of going towards this anyways, Mark. We would be looking at this anyways. Actually, the fact that we've added the customers in Litchfield actually makes this more financially viable. Absent that, it might not have been. And we were approaching this anyways, and we were going to need to address it because the 3 wells over there are actually overstressing the existing aquifer over there at the Dara Pond area. And actually, one of the wells is actually having to be reconditioned at this time. And our Taylor Falls connection is actually only a seasonal connection. It goes underneath the bridge there. And so this actually gives us a 365-day per year supply across the river versus that supplemental supply being a seasonal supply.
So when you interconnect the two systems, how much of the water is going to be utilized on the east side of the river?
Sure. Mr. Ware, maybe our Chief Operating Officer could answer that question.
So with the additional customers, the average day demand over in Litchfield will be about 550,000 gallons a day. Of that, about 230,000 will come from the wells, and about 220,000, 240,000 will come across the river on a daily basis. And of course, it'll vary seasonally, but that's generally the realm. The interconnection will be capable of delivering an instantaneous rate of about 2 million gallons a day, and the peak day that we expect for delivery over there is about 1 million gallons a day.
And how much pressure does that put on the system on the west side of the river?
Again, just to put it into perspective, our usage out of the core system has been going down since 2004 because of conservation and because of change in industry. So this, the plant's capable of 35 million gallons a day. Right now it averages over a period of a year just under 9 and a peak day of around 22 or 23 million gallons a day. So lots of capacity for this to be used. And this interconnection will allow for some contribution from the outside towards the plant and the associated delivery facilities.
If I heard your numbers correctly, Mr. Ware, you said that the peak usage was 2 million a day through the interconnect.
So it's the peak will be 1, the delivery capacity is 2. Yeah.
And that you've got 20 million.
So the plant's capable of producing 35 million
35
gallons,
million.
and your peak summer day right now is typically about 22, 23 million gallons a day. That's the peak day in the year.
All right, so I was looking at that $22 million or 22 million figure, comparing it to the 2 million, which was the peak, and so I was getting about 10%.
Yeah.
So, okay, so it sounds like there's enough capacity
Yes.
to maintain and contribute and fulfill the system.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. One, boring, mathy. The other one, more interesting. The first one, so I'm slowly learning how this all works. There are restrictions that you have on your ability to expand if it's a new customer base versus an old customer base, and whether you can bill it to the ratepayers or not. How does this fall into that category?
Okay, Mr. Ware, would you like to
Sure.
respond to that?
So in this case, the benefit is for the existing customers. And so the cost of this will all be, of supporting the bond will be paid for by the Pennichuck East customer. The good news here is that the cost of the water that they're purchasing from Hudson is significantly more than it will be to buy it directly from Pennichuck Waterworks. And the cost of the bond, the expense of servicing the bond, the associated property taxes and operating expenses for the interconnection will be less than the current cost of purchasing water from the town of Hudson. So it's one of those investments that you like to see. It has a real return. It ends up, the cost will be slightly lower to the customers in Litchfield than what it was before.
So then as far as this extra capacity that your current capital equipment has, whatever, 45 million capacity versus 25 million in peak usage, if you wanted to, if we wanted our rates to go down, we would want you to sell a lot more water. Are you able to sell more water?
There's a really limited infrastructure on the east side of the river. So again, we know the exact limits of how far we can serve, and we look at the build out, and like I said, consequently, that's why the mains are sized for 2 million gallons a day. They actually, the pumping station's a million. If you step one size down in Maine, you match 1 million to 1 million. In the total prospective build out, you might hit 1.5 million gallons a day on the east side of the river. So
It doesn't look like there's any opportunity population-wise to sell 10 million extra gallons of
No.
water in the near future.
But
One of the things, and part of an answer to your question is, we can't speculate on that. We have to do improvements for the existing customers, and we have obligations to different areas. This happens to be PEU, which is Litchfield. But we can't, for instance, extend the main in hopes of getting new customers. It has to be for existing.
And when Mr. Leonard speaks about that, that is in gaining approval from the PUC. The PUC would not approve us doing something to, build the bridge to nowhere, type of thing, or to build at a capacity that is well in excess of what that current need might be, or a current reasonable expectation of what the immediate need might be. And so when Mr. Ware talks about the main having a capacity in excess of the pumping station, we've looked at those dynamics, and the cost of that size of main is appropriate, but also at some point in time, could we upsize the pumping capacity through that main? Should we need to, then we could, but it would have to be justified by the need at that time in order to make that an incremental investment.
Right, okay. And then the other question is the idea of putting the main under the river. If you're going to dig a tunnel, you could probably just dig and never go above water, never stop the river. But this sounds like, so are they going to have how do you backhoe when you've got water flowing?
it's
River.
a combination of things. So they're going to directionally bore half of it, and the other half is going to be done actually through an open cut process inside of a cofferdam. And why the difference? The west side of the river has got deep sediments. It's in an area where it was part of an original oxbow, so it built up the sediments. The east side of the river is ledge. And so the directional boring process, you can go through either one or the other, but not one and then the other. So again, they're going to set up cofferdam the ledge side, blast the rock, bury the main, get out to about almost the middle of the river where the sediments start to build up, and then they're going to directly bore from within that cofferdam to the west side of the river. So they won't do any excavation at all on the west side of the river. They'll be going underneath the sediments, underneath the river, and come up and pop up, several hundred feet away from the river's west bank.
So will we see, if we wanted to, would we see activity out on the river doing this?
Yes.
The what?
The cofferdam.
Okay.
You're going to see that.
All right, it's exciting. When's this going to happen?
This summer.
This summer?
Yes.
Okay.
We've got a number of level of permits that we're still working on. 2 easements we're obtaining on the east side of the river in order to actually make the connection once we reach the river bank and get to where our existing infrastructure is. Permitting for the river crossing, and then of course PUC approval of the financing, the water contract between PWW and PEU, and actually the crossing, allowing the crossing of the river. So there's a multitude of steps in this process, but the desire is that probably in the July timeframe we would be starting this project and get it completed during the summer months.
All right, sounds good. If there's no further discussion, the motion by Alderman Cookson on the floor is to accept and place on file the communication from Mr. Goodhue regarding request for approval of loans. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against say nay. Motion carries. Unfinished business.
There is none.
New business resolutions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a new resolution, R17090, excuse me, authorizing Pennichuck Corporation and Pennichuck East Utility, Inc. to borrow funds from the New Hampshire Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund.
So this is the actual
This is
resolution
the-
that
this is-
implements
yep.
the request. Is there a motion on the floor? Motion by Alderman Cookson.
You're doing everything. then.
Happy to
Yeah.
recommend final passage.
A motion by Alderman Cookson is to recommend final passage of R17090. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Motion carries. Okay, new business ordinances.
There is none.
There's no public comment. Remarks by the alderman. Going once, going twice, going 3 times.
Yep.
Possible non-public session? Nope.
No.
Is there a motion on the floor? Alderman Cookson.
I'll move to adjourn.
Motion by Alderman Cookson to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against nay. Motion occurs, and we adjourn at 7:31 PM.
7:31.
Thank you for attending. We appreciate it. It's always educational as usual.
I'm shutting it down here. Let's see.
Not quite